The following podcast is rated M for magic.
New magic set? Theros? I can't wait to try it.
You won't be disappointed, Timmy.
Oh boy, I can't wait to draft this. I'm gonna draft a mill strategy.
Sorry, Timmy. We're fresh out of mill today.
Oh? Well, I'm gonna draft a really aggressive deck with lots of cheap creatures.
Yeah, about that. You can definitely try.
Oh, well then, I'll just draft a bunch of cheap creature removal, and I'll win that way.
Yeah, you can play a 40-land deck. You can do it, sure.
Oh, okay. Well then, what can I draft in Theros?
Well, do you like big creatures, Timmy? Let me show you my Pelucranos. And welcome to the NoggleCast. I am Skylar, aka Aeolian.
And I am Garci, aka Yoshi.
And we are the Jackasses of Magic. Okay, so we're here with the post-Theros release, coming to you after GPOKC and some standard results are in. So I think mostly we'd like to go over, in the first part, basically our limited experiences and how we're looking at draft and sealed. Let's go ahead and go over draft a little bit before we touch on sealed. And so I'd like to say that draft is a little bit better than sealed.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of people kind of feel like this in general. Like usually limited, people tend to prefer draft because you are given a little bit more control over, what your strategy is and whatnot.
I would have to agree with you on that.
But Theros is like a big difference.
Yeah, it's definitely a big difference, even from just, the core set. We just got off of, 2014 core set, which had a lot of interesting...
Blue.
Well, it had a lot of interesting... yeah, true. But it had a lot of interesting strategies that you could do in the set, at least through sealed or through draft. And now we're coming into big, bomby, whatever set.
Which
is kind of
is
weird.
Fine, but the problem is there's nothing to keep it in check.
That's the biggest problem, yeah.
So,
I mean, we just got off of GP, OKC, and me for removal was whatever creature buffs I can find. Yeah. I'm in good shape.
And that's the other thing. Our combat tricks are fairly few. Yeah. Like, most of your heroic enablers are going to be, like, cheat or sorcery speed. Yeah. They're either going to be the cantrip enchants, or
you're going to bestow something.
Or a bestow. And there really aren't a lot of instant speed tricks.
Well, the problem I had with Theros coming into it was that I just kind of looked at the set and I was like, man, there's like no removal, there's no flyers, there's like a lot of just big bombs.
Yeah.
And playing it now with sealed and with drafting, it just reinforced that, it's just like, this is just a bad set to go through in sealed and draft. I'm just not happy with it.
I don't know. And what's cool about draft, at least from what I found, is you actually can draft some aggressive.
Yeah, I did find that there is some aggressive strategies in
like especially cheap flyers. Yeah. Like if you can grab like a few Vaporkin, like there's a lot of times where you can just like turn 2 Vaporkin, turn 3 Vaporkin, and they'll just never be able to deal with it. 4 damage a turn in the game. You can just throw chumps on the ground while you kill them with fires.
That red-white strategy, too, is pretty aggressive.
Yeah,
you can... red-white 2-drop that gets plus X for each attacker and creature. It's just pretty disgusting.
I've seen that as well as I think it was red-black I saw. But you can definitely go for an aggressive strategy, and it makes it tough if you manage to actually get the cards. It's kind of hard to actually get a good aggressive strategy.
True.
But if you do manage to get the cards, most people are not prepared.
And that's the problem with this. And that's really the biggest problem with this set is that because the creature removal is so expensive, the only way that you can deal with these cheap aggressive creatures is with cheap Courser. It's like cheap aggressive creatures, unfortunately, and that's kind of where I have a big problem with it.
Usually the best way to deal with them is to, like I said, drop like the 3/3 for 3 or something.
Yeah.
Usually just shuts out a lot of their crap. And
true. But, I mean, it's still a really hard strategy to, have to try to win by, And you know that you got a really unusual set when your best removal is in blue.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got mostly, I think a lot of people have kind of agreed, Griptide is one of the best for its instant speed and one of the biggest tempo plays, because tempo is huge when you're both just trying to drop your bombs and establish your board. And then the other one was Sea God's Revenge.
Right.
Because, once again, it's all about the board.
Yeah, just a complete blowout.
Yeah, if you just remove 3 of their things that it took them, a bunch of turns to get to this point, and, like, when my 4/5s are now crashing in or whatever, and Nessie and Asp, whatever dumb crap you run, it's just a huge amount of damage.
Yeah, and this is just a
huge
huge
it even has Scry
swing.
1 on the Sea God's Revenge, but even Griptide, because there really isn't a lot of good instant speed.
Unfortunately.
Especially direct interaction.
Exactly.
Like, there's a few of the instant speed combat tricks, but like straight up cards that at instant speed interact with their creatures at any time. We're not looking at like Divine Verdict,
where you have to wait until they're attacking or blocking.
Like when they play that, Pulagrinos or whatever dumb bomb, you can at least like put them back a turn. You don't have to wait for it to attack.
Yeah. Plus it slows them down too, since it's going to eat up their card draw for the next turn too.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not actually down a card, which is usually my biggest problem with bounce. Like the tempo really has to be worth it usually.
Right.
Or you're down a card and they're not. They're just down some tempo.
Yeah.
But in this case,
they're down a card and also some tempo. So, I mean, that's good. Yeah. But, I mean, other than that, you don't really see a lot of the inexpensive creature removal that we normally see in a set like this.
Because we were joking, like, what was that? Lash of the Whip?
Yeah.
That was like, I want to say it was in Scars of Mirrodin block or something. It was like Grasp of Darkness. Mm-hmm. And that was 2 black.
Yeah.
And now it costs 5. You trade 1 black for 4 colorless.
Yeah.
That's pretty steep.
That is pretty steep. And especially in a set like this where it is just full with big bombs, if you can draft that aggressive strategy, or even if you can open it in the sealed, and you can get it online quick enough, you're probably doing pretty good.
Yeah, my experience, and I think we're kind of drifting into talking about seal and stuff too. So we'll go ahead and touch on like our experiences at GPOKC and stuff.
Right.
And one of my experiences, and this is why I kind of mentioned it earlier, I had a few games where I would just aggro out by dropping, because I played blue-white, and a lot of my creatures were flyers, and there were a lot of games where I'd be like, Vaporkin, and just like start dropping some dudes on the ground, and my 4 damage a turn would get there pretty quick.
Yeah, and I opened up Bant for mine, and I would just drop, a turn 2 whatever. Turn 3 usually was Daxus. It was like a bomb in this format because they just can't deal with it.
Yeah, nothing can block it, right?
Right.
Because everything's too big.
And then usually like get to turn 5 and I just bestow it with either flying or vigilance.
Yeah, and then
just
definitely can't be blocked because now you have to double or triple block it or something.
Exactly. So I mean, my experience is the games that I lost they were able to get on board a lot faster than I could get on board, and because I don't have any ways to interact with their creatures.
Yeah, exactly. And this
I just get blown out.
This defines Theros sealed in my experience with just those few sentences. It's almost always one board gets online pretty quick, and the other one just falters and dies.
Yeah,
like I said this statistic, which I just pull out of the air, so has no relevance, but I'd say like 75% of the matches I saw were one side just completely destroying the other. Like 75% of the matches were one-sided.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it really comes down to like who either gets their bomb out first or builds their bomb faster. Like you were saying, when you put Daxus, if you just bestow something on him, it's like, all right, this game is mine. Like,
right, exactly.
There's nothing you're going to do.
Exactly, because there's not enough removal to get rid of it, and you can't block me unless you want to, try to trade like 2
so many games are like weird like that. One of my matches, this guy had a Mistcutter Hydra that was like an 18/18, and I actually won that match.
Yeah.
Because I had a Benthic Giant with like 4 things bestowed on it. And one of them was a Hopeful Eidolon, so I had like a 10/11 Lifelink Vigilance Flying Hexproof. Like, I mean, come on, it was ridiculous. And I'm competing with this 18/18 just because like I can gain 10 life every turn. Like,
right. I mean, I think that's really what it is. It's like, I think one of the people at our local card shop said it best. This is the Voltron format.
Yeah.
Build Voltron as best you can.
Either build Voltron or you already have them. Like,
exactly. And I mean, it's just it's stupid. And as much as I've been playing Magic for a very long time, I really just don't like this set.
Yeah, and
it's especially in Draft and Sealed, where it's just like
the most recent memory I have of this set is Avacyn, and that's what I've said over and over, and I've heard people mention it, and it's mostly because the removal is so similar.
Yeah.
We, a lot of times you can define the limited formats by their reasonable mana costs, is what we say, and so I think most formats we say 6 is a reasonable number.
Yeah.
And you might get up to about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And in this format, it's like 8 is a reasonable number.
Exactly.
And you might get up to like 9 or 10.
Well, another thing I noticed that a lot of people were doing at the GP was, in this format especially, it's almost better to draw first than play first.
Yeah.
Just because that extra card advantage to make sure that you get the lands that you need to go over.
And that's another thing is I usually find myself playing 18 land.
Yeah.
Because, and I did that in Avacyn too, because I don't want to miss my land drops.
Exactly.
That's one of the ways the games become one-sided, because if I hit my land drops and you don't, now granted, this is true in like any Magic game usually, but we say like if someone gets stuck at 3 or 4, that's a lot more critical than other formats, because in this format, if I get to 6 mana first, I'm really on the path to success, while if you're stuck at 4 or 5, you're going to get left behind and outclassed very quick.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's only a few cards that are reasonable enough that can outclass, your big drops. And that's very few and far between, unfortunately. Usually they're like rares or mythics.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, which we mentioned, it's the very bomb-heavy format. So many rares are bombs, not just because they're good, but because they can't be dealt with.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, is because the only reason that certain creatures are considered bomby in this format is just because they're so hard to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, like Nessian Ass, 4/5 for 5, and in any other format would probably be like, eh. But in this format,
think so?
He's just that good because there's just no ways to deal with him. I mean, if you put him in like something like, M14, where it's like I have pacifism, I have Doomblade, I have, bounce, I have ways to deal with them.
I still think that's a retarded common.
It's
too strong for common.
It's really good.
That's what defines this format. Like, here's our commons, man.
Yeah,
it's a 4/5 with reach for 5.
Yeah, plus
the upside. That's ridiculous. And I think I mentioned that in our episode 1. Mm-hmm. That was one of my favorite commons looking at the set, because man, that's just
it's just ridiculous. But I think that's
because
really,
there are so few ways to.
That's really the problem with it, though, is just because there's so few ways to deal with. These,
I was on the other side of a Nessian Asp during one of my matches that became monstrous, and I had Elspeth in my deck, so of course I had the dumb sealed pool.
Yeah, you got the dumb sealed pool.
So I ended up just playing Elspeth, but I don't even have to negative to kill it.
Yeah.
I can just start putting out jump blockers.
Yep, exactly.
Depending, if they have that Intimidate bestow, I might want to be wary of that, because I might take 11 to the face or something.
Right, if, the Intimidate, or possibly the Trample, or Fly, or something.
If you've seen something like that, you might want to be careful. But I just started crapping out tokens, because I knew he had no way to deal with it.
Right.
And then when I can just chump on a turn, I easily start pulling ahead.
Yeah. I mean, Elspeth is the best card in limited format.
I think, in this limited format for sure.
Absolutely.
I think Nessian Asp was going to be one of the best commons.
Yeah.
The best removal is, we said, Griptide and Seagull's Revenge.
Yep.
One of the other best bombs that I'd say was a Boron Overlord. The guy who ended up winning GPOKC rode that thing to victory.
Right.
And I didn't watch the coverage for this, I guess because I was there. But so I can't really say how his matches went, but if I had to take a guess, it was exactly like every other match. It was just completely one-sided for one of the sides.
Exactly.
Or for one player, they just completely ran over the other person. And then, game 2, the other person runs over them. Right.
And of course, with the Overlord, I mean, you're getting so much value off of it, because I'm not only putting a big creature into play, but I'm putting a bunch of other creatures that you can't deal with either.
Yeah, and because they're all flyers, and you only lose 1 a turn.
Yeah, exactly.
With a stack of creatures. So I assume under most conditions, you're probably putting at least 4 1/1 flyers out.
Exactly.
And 4 power, or now you have 10 power in the air. I mean, that's game over.
Yeah.
What deals with that?
Right.
Very few things.
Yeah, very few things in this format. So.
I mean, if you have Anger of the Gods, maybe.
Right.
Something weird like that. And why are you holding on to it till turn 7?
Right. So. But the other thing about it, too, is Overlord deals so well with Griptide, because what they do, bounce them?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good. I get more creatures.
And I mean, Sea God's Revenge, you could bounce some tokens, I guess, and maybe put them on a faster clock to get rid of the Overlord, but you're still going to take some hits from it.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's pretty tough to deal with. Even Divine Verdict gets rid of it, but not the tokens. And so when you run into bombs like that, like Elspeth, and cards like that, they're just too hard to deal with, and put so much value on the board.
I mean, most of my games was turn 4 Polukranos was just game over, because you can't deal with it.
I was on the other end of that quite a few times too, and I mean, I'm struggling to stay alive. If I can get my board out and start getting some if I can get one of my bombs or something, I could usually compete, but
yeah,
like it was either be faster than they are, like drop some flyers out, or you just have to have the bombs, or
drop a bomb.
As soon as they drop their bomb, the game's usually decided within the next few turns.
And so that's the reason that I don't like this format. It's just because it feels like it's such a Timmy format where it's like, oh, I got the bigger creature. Ooh, I win.
Especially in sealed. Especially in sealed.
At least in draft, we have options. You know, we can kind of figure out what kind of deck we want.
I mean, because there are a few archetypes. Like, we joke about the aggressive strategies being non-existent, but they do exist in draft. Like, in sealed, you just have to have the nut pool to be able to play aggressively. And like I said, I think I won maybe 2 games out of all the matches, or out of all the games I played with the aggressive flyers, and that was just where I had the hand with 2 Vaporkins or a Vaporkin Nimbus Naiad, so I had my turn 2, turn 3 flyers, and then my goal at that point is just stall out,
right.
Which usually is not viable
in this format, especially
if you can get the cheap flyers. And occasionally I'd see an aggressive red deck or something, but they usually just didn't stand a chance. If they had their Ember Swallower, and then they had like the one game I lost against an aggressive red deck, I played Bident, and I'm feeling pretty good. And so I'm like, yeah, this game's going to be pretty sweet, because I had my flyers. I was like, turn 2 flyer, turn 3 flyer, Bident. And so we're both kind of racing each other, but I'm like, I'm just going to draw everything and be sweet. And then he plays the 5-drop that destroys an artifact.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, there goes my bomb, and now he gets a 5-3, and I wasted my whole turn, so it was a powerful 2-for-1. So yeah, that game was just decided once again by like...
Yeah, exactly, just dumb luck. I mean, that's really where it feels like too, is like, it's just dumb luck.
Which sucks, you know.
I know,
I mean,
absolutely.
Like, we can't say it's all dumb luck, because I hate, you know, a lot of people want to complain about that kind of thing in Magic, and I mean, it's Magic. It is a game of high variance, but... there are definitely some formats where they're a lot more swingy, and the games can go either way, and there's just not as much you can do about it. Because, like, you watched this was the last match I played. I was falling behind, and, like, my only real hope was to get Elspeth. And so, like, I actually had quite a few cards that scryed in a row, and I'm bottoming everything. Just like, if I can get Elspeth, I can recover from this, and actually, you know, start pulling ahead.
Because never showed up.
No, it never showed up. But I had a few games where I was incredibly far behind, and I just pull Elspeth and just pull ahead. And, like, that could be said with a lot of bombs. Obviously, I'd say Elspeth is probably the best, but there are a lot of bombs that it's just like, okay, if I pull this out, you know, especially on curve, like things like Ember Swallower and Pelucranos, if you get those on curve, then you're definitely in
I mean, I don't know how many games I've won with, you know, turn 4 Pelucranos. I mean,
absolutely.
Like
and then you can untap Monstrous, their 1 or 2 blockers if they have.
And it's just like swinging for 7 every turn, you know, or usually what I would do, though, on turn 5 would just use a bestow guy on him. Like, it's like 7/7 flyer, 7/7 vigilance, you know, deal with me, you know.
And that's what every card says in Theros, deal with me.
Deal with me.
And then every other card says, I can't.
I can't. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's really where it is.
So I think that's pretty much our limited experiences in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, we did pretty good in GP, OKC. We both went 6-3, so, I mean, I can't complain.
Yeah, which was...
For our first time ever doing a GP, I mean, I think that's pretty dang good.
Which is disappointing because 7-2 is prized.
Yeah.
And we do have a little bit of story I'd like to share. We walk away with one good story. Yoshi over here got to actually play Shahar Shinhar and actually won the match. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Right.
Like, not many people get to say that, so...
Yeah, get to play against the world champion of Magic and actually get to beat him.
Yeah, and actually win the match. But, and I mean, I'm not saying you're a bad player by any means, but a lot of both the games, or at least some of them, were decided by dumb luck, weren't they?
Yeah, the last game definitely was dumb luck because... he was playing a blue-white deck, and it was really good, but it was first turn planes, second turn planes, third turn planes, fourth turn planes, fifth turn planes. It was just like, oh man, and me, it was just like, I hit my curve perfectly.
Oh yeah, there's no way you can recover
it. Yeah, couldn't recover it because it was like turn 2 Fleecemane Lions, third turn Daxus, fourth turn Pelucranos, and it's just like, you're
awesome
gone.
Dudes on curve. And,
I mean, it was just over. I mean, but game 1 and game 2, we both, you know, fought for.
They were actually kind of back and forth.
They were the only real games I actually played.
Really?
In all of
and I felt that way too.
Like,
I probably had 2 or 3 games that I actually involved some real thinking. And I mean, obviously, like, you can still make misplays and do dumb things, but there's not a lot of solid thought. Like, a lot of times your lines of play are fairly obvious, I'd say, but... Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the constructed portion of our post-Theros release, and I'd like to really just... I haven't actually looked at Modern or Legacy results.
No, I haven't either.
And I'm not sure if Theros is going to have much of a showing in those. So at least for this, we'll kind of just focus on standard.
Yeah.
And maybe in the later podcast, if we feel like we want to touch upon their impact. I feel like if we did touch upon impact and modern stuff, they'd be pretty short.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I mean, Theros has some cards that probably would get in there, but not too many.
Just as an example, like maybe Anger of Gods.
Yeah.
Replace Fire Spout or Slag Storm if decks ever played it. Those. So,
yeah, I mean,
but anyways,
maybe. So the only card that probably is going to see any modern or lazy play is Thoughtseize, but it's already been proven.
Well, yeah,
so it's like whatever.
Thoughtseize already exists.
Yeah,
but now you can get them for cheap. So maybe people will quit calling it Cash Seize,
right?
Because that was always my favorite. I love the nicknames Jace the Wallet Sculptor and just stuff like that. It's funny.
I wonder if Ashiok is going to make any kind of splash in something, just because,
like outside of standard or just in general.
Like just in general. I mean, I know it's standard has kind of been used in something.
Yeah. Ashiok has seen a little bit of play and actually jumped in price because our first tournament results, we had 4, I believe. I mean, don't quote me, but 4, I think, of the 8 lists were Esper Control.
Right.
And they played Ashiok.
Yeah.
I think most of them played a main board even.
True. But I just wonder if it's going to make any kind of splash in like Legacy or Modern at least.
I really doubt it because I don't think it does enough. In Standard, we're kind of seeing the reason, like, it was fantastic in the mirror, because against Control, it's like, your only answer to it is Detention Sphere, right?
True.
I mean, like, how else do you deal with it? So, it was fantastic in the mirror, and even against aggressive strategies, like, you don't play this turn 3.
Right.
This is not your turn 3 play, but it acts as a win condition.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's like bad Nifali Drowning.
Right.
And maybe I shouldn't call it bad because you don't have to have the mana to use it or whatever, but it's not a land. It's a bit easier to deal with for creatures. But once you have established control of the board, you know, you have a win condition that costs 3 now.
Yeah, that's true.
That you can put out and still have mana up for that turn.
Yeah,
so I think that's why Ashiok.
We'll see.
So
I think it's still a decent card. I mean, a lot.
I didn't like it. And in the set review, I said that I was pretty sure it probably wouldn't see play, and so
yeah.
I was kind of surprised. There were a couple other cards I'd like to mention real quick.
Yeah.
Like Pelucranos, I think I really underestimated his monstrosity.
Yeah.
Because I was like, 5/5 for 4 is fine, you know, but we've seen that before. But no, he has seen some standard play, and I think it's really just because it's monstrous.
Yeah, monstrous ability, because, you know, turn 5, you drop your next land, and you can make them at 7/7.
And eat up some
and
blockers
eat a blocker or 2, possibly. Yeah. So, I mean,
so that's pretty cool.
You can really go to
So he's definitely better than I thought. Like, he's kind of going the opposite way, in my opinion, of like Colonian Hydra.
Yeah.
Or wasn't that the...
Yeah, that was the...
Of course, because when I saw that one, everyone was like, oh, this is so cool, or at least that's what the market showed, because its price was crazy. And I was like, this card isn't that great, guys. Yeah. Like, this is really just a vanilla beater, which is fine. You know, it's powerful win condition, but like, why was this card $30? Like, what were people... The biggest problem was that it would just eat any piece of removal.
Yeah.
It even dies to like a Mortars,
True.
Which is super prevalent because they don't get the chance to untap and attack with it.
Exactly.
Then it never gets the chance to grow.
Polychron is a 5/5 so
from the get-go.
Yeah, so Mortars can't touch it.
That's really what's making the difference, because, and we'll start with these archetypes. We'll go ahead and start with green-red since we're kind of discussing that to begin with. Mm-hmm. The green-red X. Mid-range, I guess is what we're calling it, because I've seen Jund, I've seen Naya, but the green-red core is really, it's usually some kind of ramp creatures, like we've got Sylvan Caryatid, and some play Elvish Mystic, and then some play Satyr Hedonist.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back and forth. Obviously the Hedonist is slightly more explosive. They're usually coming into like a Stormbreath Dragon off of it, at least that's the living dream.
That's the dream.
Yeah, so the idea is to slam a Stormbreath Dragon with that or something, but black, they get access to Dreadbore, they get access to Underworld Cerberus. However, I haven't seen many lists run it, but keep that, like, I'm calling it here.
Yeah,
like,
keep that in mind.
If you see the Jund mid-range or something, like, this is the card, keep an eye out for that crap.
Right. I mean, I think Cerberus in that deck especially could be explosive, because it's just...
I think Cerberus in general is undervalued, but I kind of mentioned that in our first episode.
Exactly.
But no, black gives you access to what I've seen as Dregmangler was another one.
Right.
So we had the difference being Dregmangler Dreadbore, and Rakdos Return.
Yeah.
Because when you are ramping, sometimes if you just turn 5, you Rakdos Return them for 5, that's pretty good.
Right.
Because now you just
like
did,
blowout
you had a one-side Sire of Insanity,
right?
Like you just domed them for 5, emptied their hand, and,
and
if you can just take the board, game's easily yours.
Right.
Like it's a reverse Sphinx's Revelation.
True.
You know? So
what about the Naya version? What's
Naya version? And we can take a look real quick here if we want to find a list.
Because I would think they would probably be running Boris Reckoner as
they run Reckoner, and I believe they run Voice as another card. They have access to Fleece Mainline is another one.
Yeah, Kitty is awesome,
and it looks like a symbol of the Legion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It gives you access to Fleece Mainline having white, Boros Reckoner, and a symbol of the Legion seem to be the biggest differences.
Okay.
And I think it kind of depends on the list, but I feel like you could fit Voice in there somewhere, because Voice is definitely going to give you a much better game against the aggressive format, which is something we should touch on. Standard is pretty aggressive right now. Mm-hmm. This is pretty common for initial rotation. It's usually fairly aggressive format coming into it. So the green-red strategies are going to play a lot like that, and what I like most about them is being able to play Domri or Xenagos, which I think just the green-red versions do.
True.
And I might be wrong about that, but...
Yeah, I think that usually there's the straight green-red, because Xenagos doesn't really do anything for any of the other colors. So
I mean,
so it makes sense.
I think the black, their non-creatures, Dreadbore and Rakdos Return, and the white, we have their non-creatures being things like a symbol of the Legion, Magma Jet. This list has Domri, and they also have Legion's Initiative, but that's kind of weird.
But, I mean, the format is new, so, I mean, people are trying out a lot of different things right now to see what actually works and what doesn't.
Definitely.
So I mean...
It'll become a lot more solidified as, I believe, Pro Tour is coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
And we'll also have state championship lists from TCG for all 50 states after this weekend. And that usually helps define Standard pretty well, too.
So we have that mid-range. There's another mid-range deck in basically black-white X.
Yeah, and so our color choices here are straight black-white. Mm-hmm. We see black-white-red, and I believe I've seen black-white-green.
Right.
And this is for the mid-range.
Right.
Because we'll see that color combo appear elsewhere. But, so the main strategy here is to ride the back of Blood Baron and Desecration Demon and the other powerful black and white cards like Obsidian. And usually the lists play one whip of Erebos or 2.
Just to gain life back and also get you more value.
And you have infinite Obsidian if you ever have the whip out.
Exactly.
Which is the pretty cool combo there. But, like, we've seen Blood Baron become real popular now. He's like a $20 card or something.
Yeah, he
kind of jumped up in popularity. The black, white, red strategy, the Dega lists, right now they're pushing kind of heavier red because Anger of the Gods.
Yeah.
It's mostly Anger of the Gods. I'll occasionally see a one of Aurelia. Yeah, which is a pretty cool finisher. I like Aurelia. Because, I mean, come on, with Desecration Demon or something, that's pretty sweet.
Right.
Or, like... If you have a whip out or something, like, I mean, come on, the game's over if you get to attack twice with a whip.
But yeah, the decks, I mean, the black, white, whatever, is just a lot of removal, a lot of great creatures.
Yeah, the creatures are all tough to deal with. Yeah. All the non-creature spells are powerful. Because we're looking at, with red, you got Dreadbore, and we have Hero's Downfall in almost any of the lists. With red, you also have access to Magma Jet and War Leader's Helix.
True. And also Mizium Mortars, and also, because you're adding red, you can also play Chain to the Rocks if you wanted to.
Yeah. And I like Chain to the Rocks as a answer to things you normally couldn't deal with. Because, like, in the mirror match, you can hit a Desecration Demon. It gives you more answers to things like that, where Mortars doesn't. And Mortars is your only answer to Blood Baron. Right. So you kind of, depending on the popularity of this deck, if you're playing it, you have to kind of figure out your split, how you want to go.
And then the black, white, green one takes a little bit less on the removal side, but just has better creatures.
They get crap like Scavenging Ooze.
Right.
And I think they played Polukranos.
And probably that too, because I mean, Polukranos right now is just such a decent card, and I think that when we were going over the list, I think that we underestimated him as that.
For constructed play. Like, obviously, I knew he was a limited bomb. Like, we
Slider's in that list too, which makes absolute sense. A 4/4 for 3 is just going to be hard to deal with in any game.
Yeah, well, that card plays double duty.
Yeah.
Because it stonewalls the aggressive decks.
Yep.
And competes with their bigger drops from the get-go. And it also acts as an aggressive finisher itself if you're playing control or something. Exactly. Because, like, I'm just going to start beating with 4 power. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and you can't do much about it anyway.
Another creature I'd like to give a shout out to is the Boon Satyr.
Yeah.
And although the black, white, green doesn't run them, I think we probably should have mentioned this in the green, red X. Mm-hmm. But Boon Satyr's been getting a lot of attention, and I liked him. Yeah. From the get-go, because like the flash 4/2 is pretty sweet.
Yeah, not to mention that. I mean, the bestow part, for 5 is still nice too.
And it lets you recover
from instance.
Yeah,
right.
So it lets you recover from sweepers. Like if they tap out to sweep, you can put 4 power on the board. It lets you bestow on your dudes, and come on, bestowing that on anything.
Yeah,
like
can turn into a
who cares what it is? Like,
right.
You suddenly have your own Pelucanator or something stupid.
Exactly.
Build your own. So.
Yeah, Boon Satyr is definitely one of those cards to take a look at.
Yeah, I'm not sure how relevant Abrupt Decay is in this format.
Well, I think it's mainly there for just the aggressive creature decks. I mean, it's...
Yeah, it does tend to hold them back.
It holds them back for now, and then it drops its big bombs and just goes to town with it.
Playing the junk for the black-white decks gives you access to Voice, which is a nice speed bump.
Yeah.
Too. And because the black-white-green is a little bit more creature-heavy, and we're taking a slightly different approach than the black-white-red, for instance, our non-creature count goes down.
Right.
The voice token is a lot more relevant than
but not so much like it's also playing Advent of the Worm, so I mean a 5/5 for 4 you still can't deal it's still hard to deal with. So it looks like the black white green deck is just a lot more creature heavy, but
that whole black white archetype is a real player.
Oh yeah.
I expect to see it in black white green, or black white red.
Right.
Personally, I'm gonna lean towards black white red and see how that goes.
Yeah.
I'm testing this list. I'll be taking it to States this weekend, and then we have a Star City Open in Fort Worth coming up in like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something. And I'm hoping to have my list kind of refined by then.
Yeah, I think it's a good list. I think
it's either the black white X deck or the green white X aggro, and these are the two I'm looking at, are these archetypes for me personally. And the green white X is once again either straight green white. Or you'll see green, white, red, or green, white, black.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're just riding the back of Experiment 1. Some lists run Soldier or Pantheon, which is kind of greedy to run both.
Right.
It's either Dryad Militant is usually what you combine with Soldier or Experiment 1.
Right.
So you have just one color you can focus on for turn 1. But we got Soldier of Pantheon, Dryad Militant, Experiment 1. Then at your 2 drops, you got Fleece Mainline and Voice.
Yep.
And then at 3 drops, we got Smiter and Boon Satyr.
Yep.
And I've seen people run the 4 of Boon Satyr, although in my list I was kind of looking at a little bit fewer of that.
Yeah.
But anyways, Boon Satyr's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So you have to be the slightly heavier green version for that.
Yeah.
So you usually want Experiment 1 and Dryad Militant for your 1 drops if you're going that route. But then at 4 drops, which is where the curve stops, I'll see the lists run
Advent of the Worm.
And I guess I should just track back slightly to 3 drops, but I'll see them run a Johnny too, which I thought was kind of cool.
Right.
Which I had the one of in my list, so when I saw these lists placing, I was like, yeah, I see it. Johnny's kind of cool in this list. But 1 or 2 of Johnny's.
Right.
And then I've actually seen Heliod make an appearance, even main deck, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
guess it's just in case of board whites from the control decks or something, just to
give
it some inevitability.
And I didn't really consider this, but in green and white, the vigilance is super relevant because you guys can block.
Yeah.
So vigilance is a lot more relevant when you have the Smiter and you have the Advent of the Worm and you have these giant things.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I've even seen Heliod. But yeah, the curve really stops at 4, and everything's a real powerhouse, and it's tough to deal with.
Right.
Your creatures are resilient. Experiment 1 regenerates. Fleece Mainline's a pain in the butt once you make it monstrous. Boon Satyr is instant speed, so it doesn't have to be resilient.
Right.
You can flash this in response to things. And Smiter's just super efficient, super strong. And if they do Rakdos return your hand, maybe you can slam 2 Smiters and not feel so bad about it.
But then there's also, Advent of the Worm is an instant speed at 5/5 too. So I mean,
it's super strong and it's instant speed. So everything's resilient, tough to deal with. The red versions, it just gives them access to Boros Reckoner and Domri. Yeah, it gives you access to Domri, which is pretty cool.
I don't know if I like the red version.
It's pretty greedy.
It is greedy
because
it's at least in the Forest Reckoner, so you can't drop a forest at all.
Yeah, to play it on curve.
It's just ooh.
But when I was looking at the list, they played both Experiment 1 and Soldier. In the Nihilist that I saw, and I was like, holy crap! How are you? Come on, how'd you pull that off? But whatever. If you can do it, I don't feel like the mana bases are that strong.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
You can do it.
Mana bases are so wobbly right now.
Yeah, and especially in the creature and creature match, because in that list they had to run 12 shocks.
Yeah.
So, like, you're going to be shocking yourself because you're going to be playing stuff on curve. You have to. I feel like the green-white is maybe a little bit more consistent.
Right.
Slightly stronger.
But there's also the other aggro deck, which is red X aggro.
Yeah, and we have mono red.
Then
we have, like
red green.
The other card, let's step back 1 second, the green, white, red. The other card that I was thinking of was Gore Clan.
Oh, yeah.
It gave you access to Gore Clan.
Yeah. Okay. Which, of course, like the red-green deck Gruul is also playing.
Yeah. And
that's just disgusting.
So, yeah, we'll move back to red. We have red X, and, like, there's a lot of mono red.
Yeah.
And
which is surprising, because I thought that after rotation, like, a lot of the mono red would just kind of fade away.
And it's not, and here's the deal, and this may just be dumb conjecture, but I think the reason we see a lot of mono red is because it's easy to build.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, the list is very simple. Most of the cards are already existing.
Yeah.
You play Boros Reckoner, you play Aeolian, you play Rakdos Cackler. Like, the only new card you need really is, like, Stormbreath.
Yeah.
Which...
I don't even know if they're playing Stormbreath, are they? I mean, that's topping their curve at 5. Usually it's like Fire Drinker Satyr, which we don't like, It's
like I was saying earlier, if they played a Boros Reckoner, and not that this only exists if you have Domri, but like if they fight your Boros Reckoner, or their Boros Reckoner with your Fire Drinker Satyr, they kill a dude and lava axe you. It's pretty sweet.
Exactly. So... But yeah, it's just, it looks like the mono red deck, for aggro is pretty okay. But I think that you're a little bit more consistent with the green white.
I'm going to say expect mono red to fall out of favor as the format becomes more defined.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I think it's an easy list to build and most of the cards are readily available. So I think that's why we see the popularity. Yeah. Not necessarily because it's really good. It's okay.
It's okay.
But
because it's missing a lot of its burn. I mean, it's using Mizium Mortars and stuff to try to deal with creatures. But the problem is Mizium Mortars does not hit the player, which is what Red's traditional burn wants to be able to do.
You want to throw it at their face if you don't have a dude. Yeah. And like Lightning Strike is really all that does that. Yeah. You even don't have a pillar anymore.
Exactly. So I mean, you have really no way to deal with voice efficiently anymore.
Yeah, and that's a real roadblock. Like your best is Aeolian and Reckoner against that.
Just and then of course one Anger of the Gods just basically wipes you out.
Yeah, it puts you pretty far behind.
Yeah, so I don't think that the red deck is gonna. The Gruul one might stick around just because it's red-green. It has a little bit more resiliency. It has
and you get to play Xenagos and Domri, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my thing.
That's the
that
goal.
Is awesome.
Yeah,
like what I want to do is not play Domri turn 3.
Yeah,
because I want to drop some other dude. And then play like Xenagos turn 4 +1 and play Domri and just be like, yeah!
Right. I mean, that's Christmas.
Then you just Bloodbraid Elf into a Domri, basically.
Right, basically. So, I mean, I think that the red deck might morph more into a red-green deck, or maybe even like a red-white.
Or red-white. Yeah, whatever.
Some aggro deck. Because I don't think that straight red's going to have enough strength to be able to hold off.
I don't think so either. And I would say the best benefit of being straight red is Burning Earth.
Yeah.
That really is your best benefit.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't think that power level alone is enough to carry the deck into the new standard.
True.
But it is placing right now. Definitely expect to see it around.
Yeah, especially,
keep it in mind. Yeah, especially this weekend if you are going to TCG States or whatever.
Exactly.
Even your local FNM or something. Expect a lot of people to have red deck.
Yeah. I mean, it's just cheap and easy to build. And then our last deck is basically just the blue-white X control decks.
And so, like, we have mostly... I have seen some straight blue-white. But we have Esper, and then I recently saw an American list do pretty well. And I should mention that a lot of these red decks, the ones we previously covered too, we didn't really mention, but Stormbreath is their finisher for a lot of them. Even the black-white-red, even the like green-red-white, like the Nihilist and stuff. A lot of them are using Stormbreath as a finisher.
Right.
Let's check out this American Control list that we're getting this list from the TCG Silver event that was in Texas. The other win conditions are Elspeth, Aetherling. Really? It looks like that's it.
Really?
Like Elspeth and Aetherling are your win conditions.
Yeah, it doesn't look like. I mean, I guess it was just.
I was kind of expecting a 1 to symbol the Legion or something weird like that, but no.
Yeah. Sideboard mainly.
Yeah, there's one on the sideboard, but not that this list is established or anything.
True.
But for blue-white, it's really just Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah.
And Detention Sphere. These are the all-stars of these blue-white lists.
Yeah.
Because we have a card that deals with damn near everything.
Right.
Gods, enchants, planeswalkers, because Elspeth is a big deal.
Yeah.
In both limited and constructed. She's a powerful finisher. So yeah, Detention Sphere deals with everything, although we should mention it doesn't hit Bloodburn.
Bloodburn.
A lot of things don't hit Bloodburn.
Yeah, Bloodburn.
But it deals with dang near everything, and what it doesn't deal with, Supreme Verdict does.
Right.
Mostly. Then you have Sphinx's Revelation, just like Blue-White traditionally has in Standard for the past year to pull it out.
It's basically this. I mean, the Blue-White deck really didn't change much after rotation. I mean, it really didn't.
You still have Aetherling. Although the biggest change, I would say, is that they play Jace now, because you can.
Yeah.
You know, the format previously, Jace saw a showing for, like, the first month?
Right.
When he came out of the gates, and, like, he jumped up to $40, everyone thought he was the big deal, and then no one played him after that.
Right. Just like he dropped too easily.
Yeah.
And now that we're into a different format, he's like really seeing.
And I'm wondering, though, I can't say for certain. I'm not even sure how I feel about this, like what my opinion is. But will he stick around?
Right.
Is he doing the same thing he did when he first came out in Ravnica?
Right.
Is he being a big deal in the new format, and then is he going to drop off the radar again?
True. I mean, it's possible.
I'm not really sure.
I mean, some of these deck lists might go into black and just use Ashiok and Elspeth.
And that's what the Esper list runs that. Mm-hmm. And black also gives them access to
Thoughtseize and
they do have access to Thoughtseize. Read the Bones is pretty sweet, although I'm not sure if they run it or not. It also gives you access to Merciless Eviction at the top end.
True.
And which I like because it actually is a card that literally answers everything.
Yeah.
You can even deal with a Fleeceman land that's monstrous.
That's true.
You can even deal with, Elspeth. It actually does answer everything.
True.
The only thing it wouldn't answer, I guess, is... So I shouldn't have said literally answers everything. But you still have, like, Aetherling being a pain, because it can just bounce itself.
Yeah,
but it actually,
or Sods, because he's gone, or whatever.
But it actually does deal with craft that's indestructible, deals with Planeswalkers, and...
deals with gods, things like that, yeah.
So
I wonder if the black deck, I mean, just because it has access to white anyways, I don't understand why they don't just run Blood Baron over Aetherling and some of those deck lists, too.
I think the problem is that they don't want to tap out until they have the board.
True.
And I might be wrong, because they are playing Supreme Verdict and Detention Sphere, which I feel like you're going to have to tap out to...
Yeah, to do either one anyways.
To compete with the decks, because you have to be answering their threats.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure. We may end up seeing Blood Baron in some of these lists.
Yeah. Just because in the life game it's just so relevant, especially with all the aggro.
And the only card that really answers it easily is Mortars. Everything else is struggling to do anything.
True.
So I think we've pretty much touched on what archetypes you can kind of expect to see and what's floating around right now. There are a couple fringe decks, like we saw some Mono Black lists.
Yeah.
These decks may or may not take hold. Right. I don't expect them to become top tier archetypes, but do expect them to be viable.
Yeah.
If you are interested in that kind of list, check tournament results. If you see one place, maybe take it to F&M, or especially I encourage coming up with your own brew.
Yeah.
If you think your list is viable, try it out.
Right. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems right now in Magic is that we have access to so much information that a lot of creativity
and so many pros
that that a lot of Magic players have lost a lot of their creativity.
Here's what I think the mentality goes. I'll let you do the testing for me.
Right.
This has already been tested to
this already works, so I know how to all I have to do is just get the cards
I
and build
feel
it,
like that's fine if you want to get the list, but especially what you need to learn how to do is approach the metagame.
Yeah,
because you may have an established list, but a lot of times, like one thing I've seen people do, and this is a bad thing to do, is they'll take lists from like Worlds.
Yeah.
And that is a terrible thing to do, because these people come into the idea knowing that there's a limited number of players, they're all pros. I mean, the metagame is very limited there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really controlled. I really I'm not going to say take a Worlds list to, a PTQ or something, because it's not going to be good, probably.
Right. And then the other problem is because everybody else has seen that list, they know how to sideboard against it or play against it.
Because, kind of like I was saying earlier, the Black-White deck, which has been the list I've been looking at a lot, right now they're really tailored to game one beating aggro, because that's what the format is.
Yeah.
But depending how the format shapes up, if it becomes another mid-range fest like Class Standard, or if Control becomes a big contender, expect Thoughtseize to replace Read the Bones. Expect maybe some main deck Sin Collectors and crap like that.
Yep.
And we won't have main deck Anger of the Gods.
Yep, exactly.
It'll be a slightly different list.
Yeah.
So it's all metagame dependent.
Yeah.
The list is going to be there, and the core probably won't change, but you really need to know how to tailor it to what you expect to see.
Yeah. But I mean, if push comes to shove, if you want to try something new, this is the time to do it. Standard just rotated, so you have a lot of different options. If you find that one card that you just have to build a deck around,
which I'll always do that for FNM, but
I mean, it's a good time to play around and see it, because you never know, your deck list that you might think is just complete garbage might become the next big gigantic thing.
Yeah, you never know.
So try it out. That's the one thing I always tell a lot of different players is that don't just rely on what you read on the internet, a deck list. Make something. You have a collection, you know what you like to play what you like. Yeah. Don't try to force yourself into something that you don't enjoy playing.
Yeah, because the number one goal that it comes down to is having fun.
Exactly.
And to a lot of people that is winning, which, okay, that's fine. Don't stifle your creativity. You, at the very least, need to know how to tailor your lists, tweak it.
Exactly. And know how the game deck actually plays.
Yeah. That's another thing.
Just building the deck list and taking it to an FNM and never playing it once is not probably the best idea.
Even if you're a good player, you're going to miss out on interactions, and just know how to account for the metagame.
Exactly.
That's one of the best skills you can learn. Yep. Even if you don't know how to deck build, know how to account for the metagame and know how to at least tweak lists.
That's our biggest problem, though, at our local card shop is the metagame is just like
the metagame is stupid. The metagame's dumb.
We don't have an idea of what we're going to
My sideboards are usually, I call them Al's sideboards, because
it's just like, I don't know what I'm putting in here. I'm just going to throw a few random things and hope that something hits, and maybe.
I find, they usually do pretty well, my dumb sideboard choices.
Yeah, exactly.
You're one of the big offenders, too, at least for, Modern. I'm going to have weird sideboard choices, because, I'm going to run into a Yoshi deck that just takes down everyone.
Right.
It's coming from some weird angle.
What was it, 2 weeks ago when we did Modern? It was like, what,
Modern Slivers? And you went undefeated with it.
I know.
So it was pretty funny.
Bottom out, so.
Did we tie in that?
Yeah, we tied in that one.
In that tournament, so we didn't even play.
You were Judge and I was Slivers, and we were, 4-0, so it was just kind of whatever. It was funny. But yeah, I mean,
just know how to account for your meta. Whether it's a local meta or a PTQ is probably going to be pretty different.
Exactly.
And so, things like that. But it's a fresh format. That's what makes it fun. That's why I really wanted to touch on Standard.
Yeah, exactly.
I think our Modern discussion would be so limited, and same with Legacy.
Yeah, I think that we won't have much.
I don't even know if there's anything making an appearance in Legacy. So yeah,
maybe Swan Song. I think that's the only card that
Swan Song is sweet stuff.
Yeah.
But so we'll leave on that note, get in the format, check it out. We talked a little bit about it. We gave you some idea of how limited and standard is going to go. Limited's just going to be a bomb fest.
Yeah.
Draft or sealed.
Yeah, draft or sealed.
Standard, we've got some cool archetypes roaming around. We've got what I like right now, and mostly because the format's fairly undefined, is that we have a nice mix of aggro, midrange, and control.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is rare in standard.
Yeah, exactly.
At least as of late. It's usually been last year was all midrange.
Right.
Yeah, fresh format.
Fresh format. Go out there, have some fun.
Tell them NoggleCast sent you. They won't care.
Right.
So that's good.